Hello friends, we are here at the Cuba Embassy in Delhi, and Global India Business Forum has started with a series of interviews with ambassadors, and today we are honored to have with us His Excellency Alejandro Simancas, the High Commissioner of Republic of Cuba in India. Hello sir, welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Global Indian Business Forum for this opportunity.
And from you, we would like to hear about the beautiful country Cuba, and all. As we all know, Cuba is very famous for the cigars, the rum from sugarcane. It's a very there are so many unique things in Cuba. So, sir, we would like to hear it from you.
Cuba is a small island. Of course, if we compare to India, we are coming from far from here, more than 10,000 kilometers from India. Literally, we are in the other side of the world, at the middle of the Americas continents in the Caribbean Sea. The population is not too big, 11 million, so there is not any point of comparison with India in that order. But we have, we can say, a huge health, and we have a very strong feeling of friendship and solidarity, and particularly in our relationship with India, which was established 63 years ago, exactly the moment of where the foundation of the relationship were laid were two important moments. First, in June 1959, Che Guevara visited Delhi, and he had an excellent meeting with Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. At that moment, later he visited also Kolkata. And just 3 months after that, again, Nehru met Fidel Castro, the historical leader of the Cuban Revolution, in New York. And just about 3-4 months after that, we established formally diplomatic relationship. So very quickly, that feeling of friendship, solidarity, cooperation, dialogue, respect, the values that we share from the beginning in defense of the independence, of the sovereignty, the international law. At that time, we both played a very important role in the defense of the rights of the people against the colonialism, against the imperialism. So all this history united us till today, and today we enjoy a very good relationship based in a positive political dialogue, a fruitful cooperation in different sectors, and a relationship particularly in the economic and trade field, which is growing, which still we consider not too big, not reflecting the real potential that is in India and in Cuba. But anyway, it's growing, and it's a priority for both of us, I mean for the Indian government and the Cuban government to work in that direction.
Great. So this is all about bilateral relationships, which is growing. Also, as Cuba as a country, it's a very beautiful country with so many diversified flowers, fauna, flora, birds. So I would like to know, as a country, as a Cuba country, so that would excite our Indian tourists to visit Cuba.
So maybe I would start saying that when Christopher Columbus arrived to Cuba, he said, "This is the most beautiful land that human eyes have ever seen." Cuba is a beautiful country. It's full of colors, it's full of nature. You will find in Cuba the best beaches of the world, but at the same time, a beautiful nature with various intensive, different kind of colors. And we have a deep history and culture, and we have a country which has building a society based on social justice for all Cubans, with a very strong social system, education, health are in the basis of our society. And in my opinion, the main industry in Cuba is tourism. So we, in the pre-COVID time, we used to receive about nearly 5 million tourists. Of course, now we are trying to recover that level of tourism because the COVID affected everything. And we know that the recovery will be little by little. But I would say for the Indian friends to go to Cuba that the main treasury in Cuba is the Cuban people. Is the warmth of the Cuban people, the friendship, the hospitality that they will find always. And perhaps one of the places in the continent, in the Americas continents, and in the world where they will find more people who knows about the history of India, people who understand and identify themselves with the values also of independence of India and with many social values of the Indian people. So I think this is the most important, and the Indian people, of course, in that way always will be more than welcome in Cuba.
Yes.
Not as a tourist, as a friend.
As friends, as we are connected so long, like from so many years. So now to discuss about the investment opportunities and bilateral relationships between India and Cuba, I hand it over to our Global President, Dr. Jitendra Joshi, who is the Global President for Global India Business Forum.
For the human being, the most important thing is the safety. And wherever there is a safety, people like to go, like to visit. And Cuba is one of the safest country in the world, where we heard that there are no guns, there are less violence, and people are really nice. That hospitality part is very, very important. So that safety is really very important in the humankind. So what do you want to throw some light on this safety aspect of the Cuba government or the Cuban people are showing to the world nowadays?
No, you said very well. Cuba is very safe, and in the region it's a very safe place, and there is a very high level of social security. So this is very important for the people who would like to visit different countries for looking for places for tourism. In Cuba, they will always find a very high level of safety in different places, of course, and it has to do with the social environment, the social system that we have in Cuba, and of course, also perhaps the different kind of measures undertaken by the government, the central government, the local governments during many years. But indeed, this is one of the important features in the Cuban cities, in Havana and in other perhaps touristic places in Cuba.
So the dance is also very, very important part. And the salsa, I think the salsa was been actually first invented in Cuban society. So what do you say about that, sir?
Oh, Cuba is a country of culture. Cuba is a country of music, dancing. The Cuban national identity is the blending between the European, mostly Spanish, and the Africans. And that blend created the Cuban national identity and the Cuban culture, which is characterized, of course, by a very strong elements of music and dancing. And salsa is the international name given to the Cuban music, different kind of Cuban rhythms, like cha-cha-cha, mambo, son, different kind of them. But of course, the origin is in the Cuban music, and it has been and it is very influenced in many parts of the world. By the way, I would like to make a commercial. Here in Delhi, there are different places and different groups who they teach salsa dancing, and they do incredible. They dance like Cubans. There is a group, Mundo Latino, which are doing an amazing work. People who are really promoting the Cuban and the Latin American culture, the dancing. And this is one of the most important elements of the Cuban identity, as I said, the culture, but the dancing, the music, and this is something that identifies us, the Cuban and the Indians too, because you have a very strong sense of music and dancing too.
Yeah, the culture plays a very, very important role. And for the Indian youngster, those who listening this discussion, this salsa dance, which is the originally invented in Cuba, and as His Excellency has just suggested that salsa is the name given to the Cuban dances and music, right, sir? Yeah, and Indian youngsters are doing really well in this particular area of dancing. So this is about the dance culture, and a lot of things actually goes hand in hand. At the same time, business and culture also go hand in hand. Now, India-Cuba relationship, bilateral relationship are going ahead. Specifically after COVID, there is a lot of challenges actually, and specifically for the MSME sector. I just want to know, so what exactly the precautions maybe the Cuban government is taking for to growth of MSME sector in Cuba?
The Cuban economy has experienced in the last 10, 15 years a very important process of updating. We call it from the beginning, it was approved as a process of updating the economic model. And it has been a process, particularly during the last 10 years, but particularly in the last 1, 2 years, the process has been focused in promoting, creating conditions for the micro, small, and medium companies. And it has been creating new regulations, new facilities, stimulating the work and the creation of these small companies. And we can inform, for example, that in 1 year, it has been created in Cuba around 6,000 new micro, small companies. Maybe that figure is not too big in India, but for the Cuban standard, a population of 11 million people, and in a short period of time, is significantly, and it reflects the important facilities, the stimulus created by the government in order to push to promote these companies. We consider that the micro and small company can contribute even in a stronger way that they have done before to the growth of the economy. And we have been given different kind of facilities. And we have been given also different facilities for them to establish a different economic and trade relationship with the world, with foreign companies. In that way, I would like to announce about the next Havana International Trade Fair that will take place in November from 14 to 18. For the first time, there will be more facilities at the same time for the micro, small companies, and so there will be more facilities for the different kind of business with Indian companies. We are working together with organizations like FICI and also with the Indian Economic Trade Organization, and we are inviting the authorities from the Ministry of Commerce to go to Cuba to participate with an Indian pavilion, not only with an Indian delegation, but also with an Indian pavilion. And we are creating the conditions not only to participate, to visit Cuba, which is very important, but also to establish a real working relationship that will benefit for Cuba and for India in the bilateral relationship between both different companies, but particularly in the sector of the micro and small companies.
So this is a very big opportunity for Indian MSME businessmen, those who are seeking some good opportunities there in Cuba. This 14th November onwards, so it will be a great opportunity that to see what exactly the Cuba is offering for the Indian businessman. So as you are aware that Indian government is definitely focusing on MSME businessmen, as MSME is the backbone of any country, and India is definitely now is the second largest population country in the world, fifth largest economy recently it is, and now we are focusing towards a big growth, like we want to be a global leader. So in that case, what exactly the Cuba want to offer for the Indian MSME businessman, where maybe they get attracted to Cuba as a destination to do business?
First, I would like to ratify again the invitation to the Havana International Trade Fair. It's the best opportunity to get for the first time inside the Cuban market, to get in contact with the Cuban companies. And there will be also not only Cuban companies, there will be companies from all over the world. It's the biggest multi-sectorial trade fair in Cuba and one of the biggest in the region. So we are open to receive any interest to participate, and not only open, we will be very happy to facilitate the participation. There are different sectors that we have identified, and particularly sectors where we need more the cooperation, the business, and the investment, and the creation of different kind of joint ventures, joint economic ventures. Tourism, of course, is the main industry in Cuba. It's the most dynamic sector in Cuba due to the cultural, the natural, and the historical wealth of Cuba. Tourism is very dynamic. We are recovering very quickly the same amount of tourism we used to receive in the pre-COVID times. And tourism is completely open for the different kind of business, and particularly for foreign investment. In the hospitality sector, but also in the different kind of services associated to tourism. I would like to attract the attention particularly to the sector of the creation, the building of golf courts. It's a priority for the Cuban tourist sector, and I would like to invite the Indian companies to participate in the different opportunities that are in Cuba in the golf sector, which is something very attractive for the tourists, and it's associated the golf, the hotels, different kind of service activities, restaurants. So I would like to invite the Indian companies. The another sector which is a strategical one for Cuba is the renewable energy. Right now we are working very hard with different Indian companies in the development of important projects. In Cuba we have a high dependence of fossil fuel.
Okay.
And we need to change the market. We need to move completely to the renewable energy. We need to increase significantly the capacity of renewable energy sources for the electricity generation. And in that way, India has a huge potential in different aspects, in solar energy, wind energy, biomassa,
Yeah.
and we are open for that. In all the different kind of activities in the renewable energy. As I said, we have big projects with India. We expect and we know that India will play a fundamental role in the renewable energy development in Cuba, and this is another sector which is fundamental. The another one is the agriculture, and together with the agriculture, the sugar industry, where India has a lot of experience.
Sure.
And the another one, which has been very dynamic in our bilateral relationship, is the biopharmaceutical industry. Both India and Cuba, we have a very high developed biopharmaceutical industry, but of course, the scale are different because India is huge, and there are different opportunities for the cooperation. In Cuba, we developed already 4 COVID vaccine. Cuba has, I think, the highest rate of vaccination in the world due to the vaccine we created and the huge, important vaccination campaign undertaken by the Ministry of Health. There are unique Cuban biopharmaceutical products, so there are different opportunities in the biopharmaceutical sector. Also, I would like to mention that particularly in the investment, there are different opportunities in Cuba. There is a very open and in foreign investment law. There is a priority given by the government to the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Investment to facilitate and make more expeditious all the process for the foreign investment. But there is also a special economic zone, which is a special area just 25 kilometers from Havana, from the capital city. And this special economic zone is next to the Mariel port, which is one of the modern port in the region. So in that special economic zone, there are all the tax facilities created for the different companies to establish and to produce, maybe alone or together or in joint venture with Cuban companies, and to export the product to Cuba or to the region. So in that way, Cuba and the special economic zone can represent a gate also for the Latin America and the Caribbean. So this is mainly the main opportunities in those sector. And another sector which has identified also is the IT, the information and the technologies, because that sector has received during the last years a priority also from the government. Some facilities has been created. In Havana was created some years ago the Technological Park of Havana, together with the University of Informatic Science in Havana. So there are different possibilities on business related to the bilateral trade, but also the joint business, the investments, the joint research opportunities, the joint creations of different kind of IT, different kind of processes, software, ITs, practices. So I would mention that summarizing the tourism, renewable energy, biopharmaceutical industry, agriculture, together with the sugarcane industry, and when I say the sugarcane industry, also everything associated to the sugarcane industry, because the rum production, different kind of sugarcane waste, the biomassa is also associated to that, the production of alcohol, and of course the IT sector.
Great. So people-to-people contact is definitely important. As you rightly suggested, there are so many opportunity for global businessmen to come to Cuba. And this Havana, this recent, this 14th November, the business opportunities, a lot of people from the worldwide businesses are coming. At India level, if I talk about the India level, so Indian government is promoting a lot of things. What do you specifically expect from our Indian central government, that what additional things needs to be initiated from Indian government and vice versa from Cuban government also, so that the MSME sector can get the best opportunity for Cuban as well as the Indian businessmen in India and in Cuba also?
We have a very good relationship. We have a very good political dialogue. Recently, last June, we reassumed the political consultation between both ministries of external affairs that unfortunately due to the COVID were put in a pause. We have a very good dialogue, exchange with different ministries uh, related to the economy, the Ministry of Commerce, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of the Micro, Small, and Medium Company.
MSME sector, yeah.
We have a very good relationship, exchange, but we always, of course, are trying to find the ways to support more the business community, the companies in Cuba and in India, and to put in a direct contact both companies, because there is an element that we should take into consideration. We are importing a lot of Indian products through intermediaries in third countries, through third companies in another countries, at a higher cost, with more difficulties, transportation, freight,
Logistical challenge.
logistica. So the most important for us is to put in a direct contact the Indians and the Cuban companies. There is one unfortunately and sad reality that has nothing to do with our bilateral relationship, is the existence of the criminal and blockade from United States against Cuba, that at some moment is impacting negatively and extraterritorially to our bilateral economic relationship. But we have a history of cooperation, a history of friendship, and we know, of course, that there is a big potential in our economy in Cuba and in India, and we can overcome any difficulty, and there are, as I said, different opportunities and possibilities for our bilateral trade. So if we have to talk about the coming events, the coming issues, I would like to come back again to the big international trade fair in Havana in November. It would be a unique opportunity to go to Cuba and to get in contact for the first time with the Cuban companies and with the Cuban markets.
Cuba is also famous for some boxing. Actually, for many Olympics, we see in the Cuban boxers are really strong. Any specific reason that Cuba is focusing on boxing, and there are really big players has come for last many years from the Cuba.
Just coming back to the previous issue, I would like to point out that the United States economic blockade to Cuba, of course, is an illegal, it's a criminal. They are trying to suffocate the Cuban economy, and it has received the condemn from all over the world, including India. Every year, for more than 25 years, the General Assembly of the United Nations demand the lifting of the blockade, and again in November, they will be put on vote the resolution in the General Assembly of the United Nations, and again all the world will demand United States to lift the blockade. So any obstacles that our bilateral and economic relationship will receive in that way is absolutely illegal, and it will find the condemn from the Indian government and from all the world, of course. So the issue of the sport, of course, Cuba has, the Cuban government always has supported the development of the sport through the creation of different sports academies, supporting the massivity, the social and huge social participation in the sport, and it has reflected in very in excellent international results. Historically, Cuba has been one of the, the most important places in the Olympic Games and in different sports. But of course, boxing always has been in one of the top places.
Yeah.
I should say that in different moments, Cuban coaches have been working here in India, preparing the Indian boxings. And right now, here is a Cuban boxing coach working very hard, showing good results for India. And this is a motive of real pride for us in a very humble way, to see the Cuban hand in the good results in India, to contribute at least from our humble position. Among the different Cuban coaches that are working in India right now, it's very interesting because here are two Cuban Olympic champions working here. One Cuban Olympic champion in wrestling, who is a wrestling coach here in India, and another one in track and field. He was the Olympic champion in Sydney in 110 meters hurdles. So the coaches that are working here in India has a very high level. So of course, boxing has a very strong tradition in Cuba.
Friends, as you are listening from His Excellency, as we know, the India is definitely progressing in terms of good medals now, the good performance in Olympics, and definitely there are a lot of effort from Indian governments or players, but definitely there is a good contribution from Cuba for our Indian sportsmen. As sir has suggested, that's in the area of wrestling and boxing, even in running, athletes. So there is definitely when the two countries work together, there will be a effect not just on the economy, but there will be a direct effect on the sporting events, as we discussed on the Salsa also there. So the sports, the music, which for the people, when they live life, they want peace. They want to enjoy the life. Nobody want a war. So in that case, so the recent there are a lot of development and a lot of things are happening. The role of India is very, very important there, and our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, is trying a lot, as now he is emerged as a global leader. And his efforts also in that direction, that the neutrality, we are trying to maintain the neutral position and not taking the side of any specific country. Because I think for India, the growth is important. The grow together is very, very important formula, and the future is depend based on how the present situation you work upon. And right now, it is necessary that the peace is very, very important at this point of time. So I just want to know from you that the role of Mr. Modi as a global leader, who is helping many nations, and ultimately that economy cycle and economics growth of various countries also directly depend on such kind of leaders. What is your comment on that, sir?
We think that the strong India in the international arena, in economically, and the position of India in the different kind of international organizations and the multilateral organization, has been historically in favor of peace, looking for an stability in the world, in very close to the position of the rights of the people, the principle of independence. So in that way, that growing role of India in the international arena is of course important, and we look to it in a positive way, of course. I would like to mention that very recently, 4 days ago, our ministers of foreign affairs, the Minister Shankar and my Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bruno Rodriguez, they met in New York in the framework, in the sidelines of the General Assembly of the United Nations, and ratify again the will of both governments to continue developing the bilateral relationship and ratify the cooperation we had always and we will continue having in the framework of the international organizations. So any success that will have India in different aspects, internally, socially, economically, and also internationally, we see, of course, very positively. Every success that we will have India for his people, for India, will be a motive of satisfaction also for us. We wish always the best for India, for his people, his government, a lot of prosperity, a lot of peace, of course, which is fundamental. And in that way, India always will find the friendly and the solidarity hand of Cuba.
Great. And lastly, sir, you have just completed 1 year as an ambassador for such a good country. And when we are discussing, you travel a lot. And a different part of India you traveled from Pune, Mumbai, you went to Ahmedabad, Kolkata, South, even the Odisha and many places you visited. And you are fond of the photographs and photography. So we just want to know for our viewers, this is just a great passion you have. What is your experience in the last 1 year when you travel different part of India, sir?
So I have been 1 year in India, a very intensive year. We would like to have a 25 hours day to do more things, to work more, to get closer our countries in all the different kind of ways. India for us, of course, being here is a high responsibility, a high commitment, and at the same time it's a honor and it's a high satisfaction. India is being here is a duty to work for our bilateral relationship. Also, it's a joy for me to get in contact with the Indian culture, the Indian history, the Indian people, of course. And everywhere I go, starting from Delhi, I try to work always for a bilateral relationship in the different ways. I have visited universities. I have had a very rich exchange with different people, particularly young people, students. Very recently, I went to Bhubaneswar, and we had a conversation about the United Nations model with an incredible rich exchange with the students. Today morning, we had a celebration about our national hero, Jose Marti, in the Bluebell International School, and it was incredible, fascinating, and to see the Indian boys and girls, teenagers, 10 years old, performing as Cubans. It was really very enrichment for us. So everywhere I go, I work a lot, I enjoy, and I learned a lot. India is a learning in all the ways.
So friends, we are here with Ambassador of Cuba in Delhi, and such a nice conversation, discussion what we had about the experience about India in last 1 year, his opinion about bilateral relationship between India and Cuba, some sporting events, a lot of contribution from Cuba to India and vice versa also, and time to come that cultural exchange and a lot of business exchange. I request all of you to definitely visit the Havana Business Conference, which is coming on 14th of November, and there will be a lot of opportunity for MSME businessmen. At the same time, Global India Business Forum is now going for the India-Cuba Business and Cultural Council, where actually the lot of things definitely on the people-to-people contact, business-to-business contact will happen. So I hope this Cultural and Business Council will do wonders in time to come.
Thank you, thank you. I will be participating together with you, and once again, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Nice.